Great, so welcome everybody to this talk. I want to say a few words by way of introduction first, then I'll gladly hand over things to mostly question and answer with Captain and Ben. This question is one that we get a lot. It's kind of one of the most popular questions that we get asked. And so it's particularly good to talk about it. We get it from parents of older kids, but also from parents of younger kids. So it's kind of a hotline issue. We've been in existence for 5 years now, so we have had some kids go off to college or to kind of start to think about the process. With Calvin, one of the kids has kind of gone directly to college. That's kind of, so he's been most involved in the process. And as we started to speak to him about it, his experience seemed really interesting and the kind of thing that's worth sharing. I wanted this talk to kind of be a three-part talk. So there's a little bit of an introduction here. Then we're going to talk to Calvin about his journey, his experiences. Dan's kids kind of dovetail with that a bit, so we'll hear from him. And then we'll talk some more specifics with Dan about the SAT, because that's his background. And then at the end, I thought we would try to come to some kind of conclusion, and maybe we could come up with some specifics and even some direct pathways that kids can take from homeschooling backgrounds. Because I think there are a few different pathways to take. So the good news is that homeschoolers definitely go to college. It happens, and there are websites online where you can see that homeschoolers have gone to every major college in the country, all the prestigious ones, hundreds, and that website is years old now, so I'm sure there's even more. Kids go to college without SATs. They go to college without high school diplomas or high school equivalencies. And some of what we'll hear about today, they go to college without having done a lot of prep until the last few years of their kind of high school time as well. So I think with that said, we'll move on to Calvin here. You all know him, I suppose. Calvin's been a member here for 5 years. What you may not know about him is he's a college, or no, he's a high school dropout.
No.
I never went to high school. I'm not qualified enough.
That's right. And he would be a junior, so he'll be spending what would be his senior year enrolled where? RPI, which is?
Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute.
Right.
Did everyone hear that? Say it again, Colin, louder.
Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute.
Yes. Where he hopes to be a rocket scientist. Right? Maybe?
Maybe.
That's the kind of thing he's interested in. I would say, having known Calvin for 4 years, that obviously he's a bright kid, an interesting kid, but he's also one of the most social kids here. You know, you don't really see him reading a book here. You don't see him really on a screen here, although he's one of the most avid proponents of free screen access. But when Calvin comes in here, he looks around for people to talk to, and for the most part, I think he's talked and played sports and hung out here. Do you say that's true?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's very true. So the first question I have for you is, when did you decide you wanted to go to college in 2000, well, for next fall of 2007?
Probably sometime around October.
This October?
This October.
Have you thought at all about it last year?
Yeah, a little bit. That was October, or more like November was when I decided for sure, basically, or maybe even December. But yeah.
What made you decide that you wanted to do it next year? You want to keep it both next year, 5 years?
I felt ready.
Ready.
Yeah, I felt ready to move on,
Yeah.
go to college. Looking forward to it.
Was there a point at which you felt that you were prepared to fulfill the requirements for college?
What requirements?
I mean, a lot of kids have anxieties about the requirements, the SATs, the coursework, the fact that they don't have diplomas or anything like that. There must have been a tipping point where you felt, no, you started to put together those things. You're ready to begin.
I think I figured whenever I decided I wanted to go to college and apply, then I would worry about that stuff after I decided that. So like, basically whenever I decided I would, okay, now I'm gonna start studying for the SAT and do everything I need to do.
So when you made that decision, did you have a plan at all?
When I decided to go to college,
Yeah. Or what kind of plan did you have?
I mean, start by thinking about what I wanted to go to college for, like what major I wanted to study, and then start applying to schools and deciding what school to go to.
Yeah, but how to get into college? You must have had a
Oh,
plan,
yeah.
like this is the track
Oh, yeah.
record, this is the track I'm
Well-
going to take to get into college.
I mean, I basically started with, I knew I had to take the SAT. I guess technically maybe you don't have to,
Yeah.
but think on it. And basically went on the common application and started applying and see what you had to do.
Yeah.
Like write whatever essays and do all that.
Yeah. But at that point, I believe you were already enrolled in college classes, right?
Oh yeah. So for the last summer and last semester and this semester, last summer I took a Japanese class at UMass Boston, just for fun, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the reason I took it was for like fun and to learn Japanese.
Yeah.
But that's definitely, I had in mind that, oh, this will also be good. That'll have some like real grades and have done college classes when I'm applying to college and stuff like that. And then last semester and this semester I did physics at Harvard Extension.
So when you started those, with college in mind, or were you just doing it for fun, or to kind of see what it would be like?
With college in mind still, knowing it would help, but the primary reason was fun and to learn physics.
So I would say that you from my experience of you really kind of waded into the process, and before you enrolled in classes, you did some stuff here, and there was a kind of gradual progression of the kind of things that you did here. And I've heard from you that when you applied to school, one of the things you had to do was to make a transcript, and those transcripts included some of the things that you had done here. And I'm curious about that kind of wading process.
So yeah, I mean, after I applied and sent in all my applications, then the colleges asked me for my transcript, which I wasn't expecting because I'm a homeschooler. Homeschoolers have transcripts. But yeah, they were asked for a transcript. So my dad over there was like, well, he suggests, I mean, at first I was gonna think like, I know, I considered like, okay, well, explain to them that I don't have a transcript. But I think my dad suggested that we actually make a transcript.
Yeah.
So, we make that. I told them like all the classes I had done here, and things like classes or like more formal classes I had done here, and also put like my college classes at Harvard Extension and UMass Boston on it.
I think that's kind of an important point to bring up, is that what I've heard from multiple people is that the colleges, they all accept homeschoolers, but they don't know what to do with them when they apply. And the questions that they ask you and the expectations that they have often reveal the fact that they don't really, even though they accept homeschoolers, they don't really understand what it is. And it probably reflects the range of experience or the range of types of homeschoolers that there are. So homeschoolers being asked to provide transcripts, they get asked to provide diplomas. How do you have that? It was interesting to me that Calvin created a transcript and didn't, submit a letter that said, explaining why he didn't have a transcript. I think that's another tactic that you could take. Although I think in Calvin's case, it was really better to create a transcript. So before you took those official classes, you did some things that I thought were interesting and I think helped prepare you for taking classes. And I want to talk about those a little bit. So one of the things that stuck out was the AMC study that you did, which was kind of a funny, interesting thing to do, if you don't mind saying. So the AMC is a math exam. It's kind of an elective.
It's not an exam. It's more like a competition.
It's a competition. Okay. Yes, competition. Can you explain that a little bit, very briefly, what it is?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like a math competition. The AMC 10 is the first one. I did like 2 years ago or whenever. It's for anyone in 10th grade and below. And they're math problems, and I think they're fun. And then if you do well on that first level, then you sort of, if you do really well on that, then you can go, there's the next one where you need to do well on this to qualify for that, and then if you do well on that, then you go to like the US Math Olympiad or whatever. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so I helped Calvin study for that, and by helping him study for that, I printed out problems for him to study for that, and then Dan would explain them.
Some of
them, right. That's involved pretty advanced math, and especially advanced problem solving and advanced usage of math.
The mathematics, there was no like calculus or anything on
Right.
it. It's just like geometry and algebra and whatever else, but they're just designed to be really difficult.
Yeah. But what I saw is that it did involve a lot of study and some practice exams, and then finally a test that was taken under, test-like conditions. It was timed. You had to drive to a place. You were kind of working in a foreign environment. I remember when I took my SAT, I went to Doherty High School in Worcester, which was like a huge place. I'd never been there before. I was scared stiff. And so just never having taken an exam like that before, it would have been great for me to have had some practice of that kind of experience. So that was a way of practicing that. And yet there was no penalty for failure. There was no penalty for doing bad. It was a really fun exam to do. It was a fun experience. So, those are kind of proto classes that some of the kids here have done. That's an example that I use. Does that make sense? Do you agree that was that an important thing to do? Do you find that important thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely. I feel like the AMC test was at the same caliber of like difficulty and like conditions as like a real test in like a college exam.
Yeah.
As a class.
Yeah. You and Ben Rubel came to me for a biochemistry class.
I remember.
I wanted to talk about that. So can you tell people what you wanted out of that class? Because I was surprised by that.
Yeah, we wanted. a difficult class. I don't remember exactly why. I think just for fun, because I mean, like, we like the challenge. And we already knew, we were already like, knew a lot of math, and maybe, I think we needed some physics. So we wanted to try out these are science of chemistry. And we know you were like a biochemist. So we went to you and got you to teach us the class.
Yeah, so this was last year? This was so fast, I think it was last year. They came to me at the beginning of the year and said they wanted a hard class. That's what they wanted. They wanted real tests and real exams and real grades. And I thought at the time, like, why would anybody want that?
Well, we wanted to try it.
You wanted to try it, yeah. And I didn't, the whole time I was kind of thought it was strange, when they'd ask for grades. And I'd say, are you sure you want me to like grade these? And then I would give them a grade and they would come up to me afterwards and be like, this grade is nonsense. How do you And I'd say like, what? Well, it doesn't mean anything. And I felt in some ways like I didn't take that process as serious as I should have. I realized looking back it was a great thing to do, again, because that's what they wanted. They wanted a graded class. They wanted some practice with that. And again, it was without penalty or anything like that. And I will say, I really graded you. Like, one of the fun things for me at the end was like, that's a grade that was hard. And you said to me afterwards that class was harder than some other classes, right?
That's by far harder than like any other college class that I've taken.
Yeah.
Any other class I've taken in my life.
Yeah. It wasn't because the material was so interesting or great or anything like that. It was that I tried to construct tests that were harder than they would get.
Also,
at college.
Really hard time
It
constraints.
was really hard time constraints too. And if you forget that a lot of kids here are really smart, they can do things, but they've never been timed or anything like that. And operating under time is completely different, and changes things a lot.
I just want to add that I think that's an important thing to put on a college transcript, because colleges want to see that kids have challenged themselves. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I hope you added that this is something you asked for and wanted to be difficult.
Oh, yeah.
You were looking for somebody who was really going to be a stretch for you.
Yeah, in like my generic college essay that I wrote at the beginning to send to like their personal essay, I think they call it. That was one of the, I wrote mine mostly about stuff I'd done here, and that was one of the things I talked about.
I'd love to see that.
What's funny is that class becomes important to some extent, so we'll leave you into suspense about that. So when you took college classes for the first time, you were coming from a place here with 40 or so kids, you're taking a class, big classes. What was that experience like for you?
Well, the first one I took in the summer was pretty small. It was like 10 people in the Japanese class. And what was it like?
Is there any other teams in the class?
No, there was, I think the youngest person that was with me was like 19. And then most people were like young 20s.
Were you talk to kids there? Like,
Um,
you feel walking
a little bit.
What classroom?
I walked in the classroom. There were other people sitting there.
Yeah.
I sat down. I talked to them. I talked to people. Most of my time talking to people was either in the class talking to them in Japanese or in the elevator down to the first floor and walking, leaving for the day.
Was it strange to take a real class like that?
Kind of strange. Not really. I mean, nothing was really surprising. I guess when I think I asked someone why they were why they wanted to learn Japanese, and I think at the time they said it was for credit, college credits, and that kind of surprised me at the time.
So you took at college, you took Japanese and physics, 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, physics 1 and 2 is perfect section. Japanese, I think.
So one of the trends that we see of kids, of homeschoolers going to college is that they have to start, they don't have a track record of academic achievement or success or anything like that. So getting that can be important, and taking classes at colleges, at extension schools and community and night classes, that kind of thing. It is an important way of creating a track record like that. What about your SATs? You took which SATs?
The regular one.
Basic, yeah, vanilla SAT.
I took that one twice. And I took the math subject test or physics subject test.
And you took those, when did you take those?
February, I think, or either February or January.
What kind of preparation did you do for those?
Well, for the main one, I studied with this guy, Dan. I got like the SAT practice book, and we did like, there were like 4 or something practice exams, each like 4 parts, and we would do like, okay, let's do this one by Monday, and then talk about it. I did it at my house, and then we came and talked about it, and like the questions we got wrong and whatnot.
And you also did that with Ben too, so it's kind of
Yeah.
cool that you were doing it as a team.
A lot of the stuff I also did with my friend Ben.
Did it help to have like a friend?
Yeah,
through the process?
it was definitely studying like with him as opposed to alone. It was definitely a lot more fun for like the SAT and like the college class at Harvard.
Yeah. That's important to mention.
Yeah.
Did the SATs, so did they feel hard to you? Did you feel prepared for them? How did that experience go?
Yeah, they were hard. The time pressure was really hard, so it was good that I had. It wasn't quite as hard as your chemistry last time pressures, but it was still hard. It probably helped, I think, having done time things in the past.
And math and reading were very good experiences for you too. I think that's good.
Well, I'm good at math, but not very good at reading and writing. I can do it, but I didn't do as well on the SAT for that part, the math part.
How did you study for that part? Was there any like specific studying that you did?
No, that was mostly the same, where we would do the practice tests in the book and then talk about them. But with the math, there wasn't as much to talk about. And then with the reading, it was like the English section, there was more to talk about. How we use commas and stuff.
Okay, so then you actually began to apply to college. What was that like? Did that surprise you at all? Was it intimidating?
Yeah, it was intimidating. My dad helped me a lot. It was intimidating. I had to write a lot of essays. Most of it was pretty straightforward. Just all through the Common App. It tells you what you need to do basically.
So what's the Common App? I didn't have that one.
That's just like, it's like a website, and it's just a way of making it really convenient to applying to a whole bunch of colleges.
So it's like one.
And like you send your stuff, well, not everything. You send some of your stuff to them through that.
Do all schools
No.
accept that?
Most, well, maybe not. Over 50% accepted. I don't know about all.
And that's like one essay?
Right?
For all schools?
No, that's part of it, but there's also like, I sent in like recommendations from people through that, and questions like personal, like your address and stuff. And also there's one main essay that you write that you send to all the colleges, and then a lot of them have individual essays that you have to write. All those.
And so what kind of, as a homeschooler applying to colleges, what kind of response did you need? How did you negotiate being a homeschooler? those applications I imagine are not set up for directly for.
No, they're not. They're definitely not set up for homeschoolers, but I don't think we ran into too many problems. I mean, one, I guess, like most homeschoolers have a transcript and have a transcript.
Did it surprise you that most homeschoolers have a transcript?
Oh yeah, actually, wait, sorry. Most homeschoolers do have a transcript. I don't have a transcript. I don't really consider myself a homeschooler. Polytechnic, yeah. Yeah, that kind of surprised me.
So then you just made one, and how did you make a transcript?
My dad mostly made it, but I mean, he asked me all the classes that I've done here, and just talked to all the staff just to remember which ones we've done.
Yeah. That was like a wide range of stuff too. I mean, there were.
Yeah. It wasn't. I didn't only put like formal classes. I also put like, I mean, guitar lessons with Mark, singing with Amy, rock climbing with you, meditation with Ben.
Theremin building.
I wrote about that somewhere.
Yeah.
That was on the transcript. Machine dissection.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to know that like you can make a transcript and you can take those experiences that don't seem easy to qualify or describe, and they can mean something in the book, and they have value to you. So the good news is you got in to a number of them for RPI. You got in, but what happened?
Oh yeah, it was kind of disappointing because I got the acceptance letter and I was like, yes, RPI. I wasn't sure I wanted to go there yet, but I was happy. But then I looked and there was a second piece of paper on the letter, and it was like, this is a conditional acceptance based on you do a high school level chemistry class and get a B+ or a B or higher. And I was like, oh, that's annoying. How am I supposed to do a chemistry class?
Yeah, and so I think that's another example of the way that colleges,
I was kind of shocked because I was like, how am I? What am I supposed to take? What medium am I? Where am I supposed to go to take a chemistry class?
Yeah, it really amazes me. So they accept homeschoolers, they acknowledge them, but then they come back with, oh, but you need a high school class or something like that. It's crazy. Fortunately for Calvin, he had done this biochem class that was graded. And so you used that, you submitted that, and they accepted it, right? Yeah. Which was great. I mean, it was luck, but you also had done like an amazing amount of work, and you even asked for a grade, so we didn't have to make up a grade. Had done that. And I think, again, that shows that these schools, I don't know if it's just a box that they need to check off or what they do with information like that, but they, accepted a very untraditional homeschooling class. This is like a science-based school, and they accepted this class as kind of an official high school class. I think it was really interesting that they did that.
Did you have to write a letter or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, Calvin didn't know what to do, and so one of the things that I said I could do was to write a letter for that. And I just wrote a letter that described exactly what we did. I said that he came and asked me for a class. That class we used a textbook, and which is a really good way of taking a classroom environment like this. And it was great because I could cite the book, which was a college level book, and they read a chapter a week, and so they had read the entire textbook, which that doesn't happen in college very much. So that it was really great to be able to just very well.
And again, they initiated this and wanted this.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is worth a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So was there anything surprising about the process for you?
Which process?
The whole process of getting into college for homeschool.
It's a really general question.
You can just say no.
I don't think anything really surprising I can think right now. There's
All
some
right.
things I like, things
What would you do differently looking back?
start earlier.
Start earlier. So how old were you, would you say, when you started? I mean, you say that you started this year, but it seems to me like you did kind of start earlier.
Well, no. The part I wish I started earlier was actually applying to that
Actual
job.
application.
Because the hardest thing was probably writing all the essays. And like, I think we were on like, had like a family trip somewhere. And then I got back like 2 days before the deadline for like after schools. I had to write like 5 essays or whatever in 3 days. So yeah, and I'd done a little bit before that. I really don't remember exactly when I decided. It was sometime in the fall. And like most of the deadlines were like January 1st, I think.
So do you think you should have made the decision to apply earlier, or once you had made that decision, you should have completed the application earlier?
Both. Mainly though, I should have, I mean, I decided when I decided. So, but if I had decided earlier, then that would have helped a lot. Also, there were like the SAT is only like once every month or whatever, so like I sent in my scores late because I had to take the main one and the subject test, and then it takes like a month to get back. Yeah.
You're done. You can say that you're answering this question.
Do you feel prepared for college? That's my question. Do you feel like, ready to roll, or oh my God,
Yeah. For the most part. I mean, kind of nervous. The main thing I'm scared of is I'm gonna like it.
You'll be fine. I just have a question too. I'm assuming you did see AMCs and they go, maybe I'll like math, and it seems like there's probably some sort of culmination in determining that you like that subject. So I'm just wondering, before getting into things like that, did you have a formal education? Did you do homeschool classes? Is it stuff you did on your own?
No. So I went to SBS, some people may have heard of, for when I was like 5 until I was like 12, and I came here. And I never did any formal classes until like a couple years ago, I guess, whatever. What was the other part of the question? How I got
So how did you pick up the math that you already knew?
Oh yeah, well, I sort of always liked math since I was pretty young. My dad likes math, my mom likes math. Yeah, I'm not really sure what got me into math exactly. The AMC I did when I already liked math by then. But there was, the AMC was a good learning experience because there was a lot of stuff on that they teach in like normal math classes in public school or whatever that I didn't know. It was just like things math that you don't know. And I learned that while I was studying for that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to point out actually that Calvin likes math, is good at math. And so, getting into college, particularly into kind of the math-based program, there's a pathway for him there. And some of the preparation and decisions are maybe easier because of that, I would say. A lot of kids, the fact that they don't like math and are good at math, that's a big obstacle for them to even consider college. We talked about this a little bit before, and you said that Denise used to give you math problems, so you did some algebra that way. You got interested in calculus through that, so you used to work on calculus here on Khan Academy with Dan, all informally and for pleasure, but it was still something that you had a real aptitude for. he really liked. It's important.
And you had Ben to do it with too. Ben, you were quite the team. Oh, he's here. Oh, welcome, Ben Rubin. I think it was a major part of the experience here. Is, the two of you working on all this stuff together, all the math and MC, the biochem. It's a major part of the experience.
Okay, so now we're going to turn to Dan. Just to say a few things about Dan. Most of you know Dan. He's been a staff member here for the same amount of time as me. He was a staff member when I was a kid of the school I went to, so I've known Dan for a long time. Dan has been a tutor for math for a long time.
Well, SAT and ACT prep, test prep.
Yeah.
Really. So it's math and also the reading and language.
Right. Yeah. But before that, you were always interested in math and education.
Well, I actually have some math curriculum development experience. Right. Yeah, I did that after my degree.
What's funny is Dan is kind of known as a math guy here. When I knew Dan at 12, I never knew that you were interested in math. You were just kind of a really sweet, fun music guy.
Still am.
But you also tutor kids in the SAT,
Right, yeah. When I was trying to figure out what to do, and this place was just starting up, there wasn't really a full-time position here. So I said, no, let's see, I guess I could do test prep. So I got a job doing SAT, ACT, ISTE, SSAT, test prep. So I had to figure out the tests, get my math skills up a little bit, where I could, confidently do that.
And you also...
And I'm still doing that, by the way. I do it, a couple evenings a week, sometimes on Sundays. So it helps support my being able to be here, frankly.
You also have 2 kids that were homeschooled.
I do.
And they went to college?
Yep.
Different paths?
Totally different paths.
Totally different paths,
Yeah.
But you kind of helped them along
Yeah.
with that too.
Yeah.
So do you want to add anything to this conversation about getting to college as homeschooled? Maybe you could talk about the different paths your kids.
Yeah, my 2 kids are very different. Leah is just now actually getting her double master's degree at Brandeis this weekend. But she ended up going to Smith College. She did a lot of work within homeschooling community. We were in Brighton at the time, so we hung out with the Homeschooling Together folks in Arlington and Belmont. So there were reading groups there. There was a writing class that one of the teachers did, Nova did. So she was kind of availing herself of kind of academic-ish kinds of things, even as a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid. Yeah, she kind of started that because she enjoyed that. She also read tons. She was an avid reader on her own. And she started taking classes at Harvard Extension when I was actually looking at the transcript. I was surprised. She was 13 when she started that. I didn't remember that she was that young. And would be often the only kid in the class at Harvard Extension. That's one of the best kept secrets, Harvard Extension. I mean, it's a wonderful program. You just have to get yourself down to Cambridge. And they're all evening classes, either 5:30 to 7:30 or 7:30 to 9:30. But it's a tremendous deal. They even offer half tuition. It's called the Lowell Scholarship that Calvin and Ben both avail themselves of. So you get half price for one class a semester as a high school age student. It's basically an automatic deal to give you. So the class ends up costing like $600-700. And in fact, some of the classes that Leah and my son Jonah took, basically equivalent to the required classes for Harvard undergraduates. But they're offered online, in the evening. But the quality of instruction is superb. So that's a huge thing that I hope everybody looks into. So by the time Leah applied, she had 11 Harvard Extension classes. So that was her high school transcript. And she did really well. She's kind of very much unlike me, a very type A, it's got to do really well. So she did really well in all these college classes. So there was no doubt in the mind of the college admissions person that this kid is able to do college level work. So my son my son Jonah took some classes at Harvard Extension, but he wasn't really that committed academically. I think he had matriculated into the program. You don't need any diploma, any other requirements, no tests, anything to get into the associate's degree program at Harvard Extension. They also offer actually a bachelor's degree in general studies, I think extension studies. So you can get a BA from Harvard as a homeschooler without any tests, without any admission stuff, basically. So something to consider.
And, sorry, excuse me, he started a lot later.
Yeah, well, he's 3 years younger. Yeah. He started later, and he had maybe 2 or 3 classes, and he decided, you know, I might like to do engineering. And they don't offer engineering in Harvard Extension. He was a Lego maniac. That's what he did basically all day. He'd wake up in the morning, rummaging in the Lego. That was my son. So he said, you know, I might like to do engineering. So I thought, well, how can we do that? And we knew that they had an engineering program at UMass Lowell. So we thought, let's find out, you know, what it would take to get into the program. So we made an appointment, talked to the admissions guy there. I'll never forget walking into his office and saying, introducing. He said, you're already in a degree program, associate's degree program at Harvard Extension. He said, just apply as a transfer student. Transfer student from an associate? Yeah, definitely. Transfer student. You had to have a minimum grade average, and he was like 0.01 above whatever, I forget what it was. And so that's what he did. The very next semester, he was like 17, 18, I think, yeah, normal kind of college entrance age. So that's what he did. No SATs, no college application, no essay, none of this crazy stuff that's so stressful. He basically segued right into a mechanical engineering program, which is not that easy to get into. And then it took him a little extra time. It took him 5 years to graduate. He's also doing crew and lots of other things. But he finished last year. Now he's working in Salt Lake City as an engineer. So that was his path, which avoided a lot of this craziness. I also want to put in a plug for community college path, guaranteed acceptance. I know some of you are familiar with this, but that's also a tremendous route. Saves a lot of money. To get the 2-year degree and then have a nice path right into college. I think in any of the UMass schools. In fact, some of you probably know more about that than I do, but I think it's a tremendous path that avoids a lot of the stress of going the typical college route. The other thing I want to say, I alluded to earlier, one of the things that really struck me when I was considering this with Leah, my eldest, was a talk I heard given by somebody at Harvard admissions person, who said, whatever situation you're in, it doesn't matter. If you're going to Lincoln Subway High School, they want to see that you're taking the AP classes, you're taking the honors classes. They want to see that you're really stretching yourself and availing yourself of whatever is going to challenge you. Now, if you're a homeschooler, you don't have access to AP classes, honors classes, but still, you can do things like Calvin did. I mean, that's a perfect example of going for the extra, showing that you're really serious about stretching yourself and challenging yourself. So that I think is really important. What advantage have you taken of opportunities that you have? How have you spent your time? What have you sought out? The things that you look for.
But just to be clear, I don't think those have to be purely academic, right?
Not at all. In fact, I know a homeschooling friend of my daughter's who got into Harvard. She did a lot of singing. She was really into jazz, so that was her thing. I mean, she really took that as far as she could. So no, I don't mean to limit that to academics.
So the transcript that you create can kind of contain a lot of non-academic experience.
Absolutely. In fact, I've got Leah's transcript, which, in all due honesty, my wife did almost all of. But it includes her Harvard classes, but it's also a book list of stuff she did. It's also
books you read.
Yeah, books that she read in her book group as well as on her own, categorized, and then trips. American history field trips. All these museums that she went to, stuff like that. I mean, that all counts. Trips that we did, to Florida, sort of independent study trips. She did a thing in Costa Rica with Earthwatch. So that was a whole page of all the stuff she did involved with that trip. So one thing that, as Calvin also mentioned, keep track of stuff, and it's never too early to start. Any kind of thing that you think might indicate something that you've done that indicates an interest that you've had, how you've pursued it, what you did. Arizona intensive, stuff. These were trips to visit my parents, but Grand Canyon, Oak Creek Canyon, Montezuma as well. These archaeological sites that she went to. But it all shows that she's interested, and that we've supported her all along the way in pursuing her interests. So this is a 17-page transcript. About half of it is classes, but the rest of it is other stuff. So it's never too early to start trying this stuff.
That's the question. So how do you prove that you didn't make all that up?
There's no proof.
They don't ask you.
No, there's no evidence. There's no
You have
corroborating
evidence
evidence.
to prove.
No.
I mean, you can probably show, the tickets that you traveled with, but.
There's no way to know that she read all these books. I mean, there's absolutely no way.
I think it's interesting because most of the people here, the parents choose homeschooling for their kids because they have no faith in the education system. And yet there are times when we have too much faith. We need to take an English class education to read books. A system that we forget meaningless things
Yeah, I
that
think
kids
so.
from high
And
school
start writing.
put on their applications.
Start writing essays.
There's a whole industry.
And there's no music stuff on here. What the heck? I can't believe it. Obviously, I didn't have nothing, but because we did a lot of music.
So Leah's experience was a bit like Calvin's in that she wanted to go to a four-year college.
Yep, very much.
She did some classes beforehand,
A lot.
a lot more.
Yeah.
And then your son completed an associate's degree.
No, he didn't. He was just barely into the Harvard program. He
Okay.
decided he wanted to transfer. So he went segued right to UNL.
I see. So he was enrolled in that. Right?
Just barely, like one semester.
Okay.
When he decided, I really want to do engineering. So I thought, oh great, how are we going to do that? And I was really worried. I thought, I didn't know how he was going to accomplish that. Transfer.
Yeah.
That's the secret word.
Katrina, so we've recently heard that your kids have been doing something similar to that. If you would like to share that, that would be really great. It's really
Sure.
interesting to hear.
So I have two children. Tori is 19, and Russell comes here to Macomber, and he's 16. And the path that Tori took when she started at Polytechnic as well as a new class, I really believe in playing to their strengths. So like Calvin really likes math, that works well for him. The Legos and engineering, you'll see, you don't have to. It'll show up in their day-to-day what their interests are, and whatever they love, that's what I feel like is a good place to start. So maybe I let my kids pick which class they were going to take, because you want them to be comfortable with some portion of it. For my children, they had never really taken classes. They had taken, maybe a friend was taking a class somewhere and they just wanted to go because their friend was there, but they didn't really have any academic backup. We hadn't taught them a lot of stuff. My daughter was a huge reader. She loved to draw, but it was more like she'd go off in the corner and read or draw. That was her passion. So she took a creative writing class at Harvard Extension. I did not enjoy driving her into Cambridge at nighttime. So the next semester we looked at a class here at Mass Bay. At Mass Bay, and I think her first class might have been at Wellesley. I can't remember if Wellesley or Framingham. So we did the same thing. We went to something she liked. She took a sign language class. It was mostly adults. So I didn't really think of it as an academic class, but it turned out kind of being her foreign language requirements, if you want to stretch it that way. So it was mostly adults. Again, just getting her feet wet, letting her learn how to be a student, because she had never been responsible for homework. If you don't do your homework, you show up and it had nothing to do with me. She had to take that all on. And then we switched to daytime, and it was nice because she was accepted into the dual enrollment program at Mass Bay, so we could it was financially, you were able to kind of pay as you go a little bit better. I should talk about how she got into, yes.
Really
Yeah. So the dual enrollment program is you get both college credit and high school credit for classes that you take at the community college. So they all transfer into a four-year school, or she's graduating tomorrow with her associate's degree, and just recently got accepted into Mount Holyoke College. So she did have to take a placement test to get into the dual enrollment program at Mass Bay. Both she and Russell took it, and it was basically there's a math portion, and then there's a like a 5-paragraph essay sort of thing, which, you know, that morning before she took the test, I was like, okay, there's a 5-paragraph essay. The first paragraph, you're gonna talk about this. And that was literally the prep that I gave her. And so both my children kind of tested in as far as the language part, but neither one of them had any real math to speak of. So they didn't really test in as far as the math. So what that meant was they couldn't take any math college classes until they came up to speed. But all they did was Mass Bay offers a preparation for college math class, so they took that. They don't get college credit for it because it's not college credit, but when they finished that class, then they were able to take whatever the least offensive one to them if they had to take their requirement because they would like math. So I'm trying to think. So Tori just kept building and building, and until I think she got up to 4 or 5 classes a semester to kind of finish that.
So she completed an associate's degree there.
She finished her associate's degree, so she's a transfer student as well. She'll transfer in as a junior, which is helpful financially because she chose an expensive college. We only pay for 2 years on it, or she has to pay for 2 years. And the other thing is, she was accepted at Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts in Western Mass, which qualifies for, I don't know if you're familiar with mass transfer, so if you go to Mass Bay and you transfer to any state school, you're free tuition. So she had an opportunity for free tuition. I know. So graduates from Mass Bay, from the dual enrollment program, you have to have a certain, I think it's like 2.5 for everything. You can transfer to any state school, Massachusetts state school, free tuition.
But that's just the
Before
tuition
you get so
portion.
excited, tuition, I think there's all the, they do tuitions like $1,200, and then you have the fees and the room and board and all that. But still, every little bit helps.
And you're guaranteed admission as well.
Yes, once you get it.
Yeah. So she completed 2 years of college basically before she was college age.
Yeah. She probably could have graduated last year when it would have been her high school graduation, but she had pulled out of a couple of classes that she just didn't like and she just wasn't going to do, so she just pulled out. And so she had to take like 1 more class in the fall, and then she started the college application, and we had to push it to this fall.
Can I ask you a clarifying question? If it's a dual enrollment program, you're getting both college and high school credits. I'm assuming that you or your kids could have cared less about the high school credits because the kids aren't in high school, right? And so they didn't get high school degrees. So
No.
I'm missing something here. So did
also,
Mass Bay know that they weren't enrolled in a high school, or did they didn't care?
Yes, and you have, so to take advantage of that program, you have to have documentation from your superintendent saying that you're in compliance with your homeschooling program. So you have to show that to them, as they believe you're a dropout if you're not in school. But it's also open to public school kids. I mean, they can take advantage of the same program, although they probably have less time to do their work.
None.
Yeah.
And we've heard some conflicting reports about that as well. So you talked to Sandra about this today. There was this kid who used to go here who's had some trouble with Mass Bay over this. You want to talk about that? Did you understand that at all? I only heard it last second here.
It's very complicated. I think you understand it.
And I don't know this particular person's situation. I guess my question to that person is were you in good standing with the school? And so if you do your report to the school, and after you're 16 in Massachusetts, you don't have to report to the school anymore, right? You don't have to write those awesome reports, but you also don't get a letter stating that you're in compliance and you're in good standing, and you need that letter to participate. So I had to write my little note at the end of the year, I'm like, get this piece of paper so that my children can participate in the dual enrollment program. So maybe they chose not to report with the school, and then you don't get a letter saying that you're in good homeschool standing.
If you do it when you're 17, then you have no relationship with the school.
Well, it depends. Some people stop reporting at 16, some people continue until their children are the typical 18-year-old graduation age.
So that wakes you up then.
It's certainly worth, half an hour scribble or something like that.
That's interesting, I never thought that.
To have that option, because kids change their minds, and it's nice to keep the doors open.
I think this happened.
Well, yeah, I guess I was just going to mention that one of the schools that Calvin applied to, they came up with a requirement that sounded very strange to me. It was more or less like the governor has to write a letter saying, no, it wasn't the governor, but something from the state saying that your homeschool program, you've done your homeschool program, and it does everything they do in the public schools, and like this whole big thing. And we talked them down to, how about something just from the town saying that he was a homeschooler? And the town wrote something saying, well, he was a homeschooler through age 16, but we don't know what happened after that, because you didn't do anything after that. And then for that school, it turned out was good enough.
Do we know if that's a common thing that comes up with lots of colleges?
Well, it seems to, and the part of it may depend on the town, the willingness of the town to write that letter might depend on the town. The guards seem to suggest today that Framingham, whoever's in charge in Framingham, wasn't particularly helpful.
I guess my question has to do with more, are the colleges looking for something like that?
Yeah, I mean, they seem to be looking for something.
I mean, the others so far off the grid, they know she exists.
Yeah, they'll sometimes call it, I think Dan called NASPA yesterday, and the woman was asking for a homeschooled diploma. And you think that's what she was...
I've seen people print them off the internet, though. I've seen moms be like... Right, like, you just need to put it in a way that they'll understand.
I think it's more...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
More common with state schools, particularly at the community college level, or maybe UMass as well, but we applied to, I think, 7 private colleges. None of them wanted anything resembling a diploma. So I think it's harder at the community college level, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think also the wind we're trying to prevent is that a student, when they become 16, drops out, and then decides they want to go to college. Like, colleges want some kind of continuation, because they don't want to encourage kids to drop out and then go.
So when I talked to a couple colleges in the past couple of weeks, just, we're preparing for this event, and I don't really know anything about this stuff. So, and a couple of the older kids have been sort of saying, well, I might, go to high school next year because that'll make it easier to get into college. And I'm thinking, no, this is great. So I called a couple schools for different kids, and also I was interested in it myself. And what struck me is how kind of bewildered these people are in admissions offices by their own requirements. I mean, they're like reading their own requirements, and I'm asking what they mean, and they're like, well, I'm not really sure. I mean, don't you, she said, well, homeschool diploma. And I said, well, what's a homeschool diploma? And she said, well, generally homeschoolers get a diploma. And I said, no, they don't. And she said, oh, you don't have one of those? And I said, no. I've never heard of anyone having one. She was talking all kinds of wacky stuff, and I kept asking her about it, and she didn't know. So I think they're just sort of struggling to do things by the books. I think a large part of this is sort of troubleshooting. I mean, there's so many different people with different stories, and none of them are kind of cookie cutter, and they can't all be applied across the board. You just kind of have to say, okay, here's my kid. She has some strengths and some weaknesses. She has a college she wants to get into. Let's just open the conversation and see what happens. And then they tell you what they need, and then you see what you can get for them, and it's just a kind of, troubleshoot.
So with respect to both the state thing that you guys ran into with Calvin and the diploma thing, So in terms of the states, every state has a different set of rules. Some states, homeschooling is administered at the state level. Massachusetts, it's only at the town, the municipal level, so your town or your city. So it may be that you applied in a state that was their expectation.
Yeah.
In terms of a homeschool diploma, there's schools like the Mass Connections or Vermont Connections or whatever. It's a for-profit school that's paid for or funded by the states. And at the end of that, you've met certain requirements, and at the end of that, you get a diploma. It's considered a homeschool diploma because it's not administered either by the municipality or by the state, because it's this independent entity. So that's.
There's a similar one called Palmara that's kind of an umbrella school where you take your information that you've done with them and you kind of feed it into them and they help you turn it into language that's English, that they can understand. Kind of like what you did for your transcript, just to talk about the things that you had done and make it more something, the language they understand, to help them know what you had done. And I was going to speak to the point about 180 days and all that they were requiring that you had done a school equivalent. You could probably go back to the initial form that you fill out in first grade or something that says, I'm going to provide a homeschool program. I think our school had us sign it that said it's, equivalent to 180 days and all that. You could probably pull that out and say, this is our town's policy, and they've said that we're in good standing. So there's your words.
So, I think that these schools just they're very willing to accept homeschoolers, but they don't quite know how to, and you really have to push and get them to accept. And arguing with them, pushing, as politely as possible.
I also want to say that some of the more selective colleges are very familiar with homeschoolers and actively recruit homeschoolers. I mean, it's not necessarily an adversarial situation. So, it works both ways.
Yeah.
Just more on Ben's point about the people there not in the admissions office not necessarily having a clue. One strategy is what you mentioned, which is you know what school you want to go to, and you really go after that school. You go talk to the people on the admissions committee, you press them, in person and so on. Calvin took a different approach because he didn't know which school he wanted to go to, which is apply to a ton of schools at a lot of different levels. Because like a usual high school student, you know your GPA, you know your SAT score or whatever, your guidance counselor has seen 300 people that way, and they say, this is the school you can get into, this is the school you can't. Whereas with a homeschooler, it's like, if the application happens to go to someone in the admissions committee who says, wow, someone who took stuff on for himself and charted his own course, that's great. And someone else says, he didn't have 7 years of social studies, forget it. So I think you really don't know, and so we just said, okay, apply to a whole bunch, and probably some of them will work.
But I think getting an interview is also really important.
Did you have one?
No, that was another thing. Starting earlier would have helped for that, because most of the schools, once I started applying, they had already finished all their interviews.
How does one get an interview?
It's part of the application process.
It is part of the process?
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
so
it used to be.
Yeah.
I hope it still is.
Really?
People
Schools
just
take
lay
the
it down
time
and
to
they-
interview, and they do some cut and say, okay, these are the ones we're going to interview? Is that how it works?
I think
Yeah.
so.
I think a lot of schools it's optional, and you can sort of reach out, especially if you're going to visit that school in person, then usually you can get an interview.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have alumni as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually did do one interview, but most of them.
Just by the way, I know some people who do alumni interviews, who are alumni who do alumni interviews, and the feedback I got was an alumni interview can only hurt you. So if it goes badly, that can hurt your application. But if the alumnus is super impressed, people on the admissions committee doesn't. That was their feedback.
Interesting.
So we've talked a lot about that non-SAT pathway, and I think that's good news for a lot of kids who seem to be particularly scared by the SAT, but I did want to talk with Dan a bit about the SAT itself, just because he had experience.
Yeah, I've been in this about 5 years. I've probably tutored 100 kids. Probably, who's up here? It's been great. Just a plug. I mean, if you're a member here, you get ACT tutoring. So, you know, I mean, not a lot of kids come to me for this here, and I don't quite know why, other than that I'm really scary. That would be the only reason I can think of. So that's a plug for, you know, being a member here, because you pay literally. I mean, could be like a couple $100 an hour for SAT tutoring.
It's expensive.
Huge, major, mega bargain. So, I mean, there's a content part, and then there's just the test practice part. I mean, the content part, and by the way, the ACT and the SAT are almost identical now. I mean, they used to be very different, so you might want to consider the differences. There's a content part. I mean, basically, it's algebra, geometry, a little bit of statistics, a tiny bit of trig for both SAT and ACT as far as the math part. The SAT has a non-calculator math section, which is really more about problem solving. ACT has a science section, which is not really about science. It's more about sort of finding data and looking for correlations and things and being able to read charts or graphs. So as far as the math part, yeah, algebra, geometry, you do need to have a handle on that. And there's various ways to get that, online stuff, you know, whatever. For the verbal, there's an English part and a reading part. Reading. The more reading you do, the better you are at this stuff. So I encourage people to just read as much as you possibly can. For the English part, writing is really important. Knowing where commas go. You know, knowing about punctuation, knowing how to phrase things. It really is, in that sense, somewhat of a good evaluation of how much experience you've had with reading and writing. I mean, not a direct correlation, but there is some experience. So I would encourage people to do as much as they can of both of those. Then, as far as the test, there are definitely things that you can do to maximize your efficiency in going through the test. Ways of marking up questions, ways of looking for correlations, and blah, 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 blah. So answer-based strategies for math. And I'm happy to help anybody with that kind of stuff. I mean, in a couple hours, I could really go through the crux of what can really speed things up and increase your score, rather than going to a tutor and paying somebody like me lots of money. I mean, there's really no reason. There's not that much to it, right, Calvin? I mean, the stuff we did, the tips that you got, not that much to it. Yeah. So that's basically the deal. But as I said, if you can avoid it and do the, you know, end run, I would definitely advise that. People often take either the ACT or the SAT twice. I think it's a good idea. The first time you can kind of consider it your practice run through, you know, because it's grueling. It's like 3.5 hours. I mean, it's a marathon. You got to have endurance. You got to, you know, keep your energy going. And see what the school requires. Some, more and more schools, thank God, are test optional. But, at least Leah's experience, a lot of the people, the schools that are test optional say, well, if you're a homeschooler, you don't have a real transcript, we kind of like to see test scores. So be prepared for that. Even if they say test optional, and you think, you know, you've got at least a grounding in the math part and are fairly literate, I would take it and submit your score. You don't have to submit it, but if it's optional, do it and see what your score is like, because it, you know, it can help you. Oh, and as far as subject tests, there's math level 2, you know, chem, bio, physics, foreign languages. Some schools like to see subject tests, SAT subject tests, so check that out. Each school will have different requirements, so don't assume, you know, anything. See what the school says, and see if they have a different bar for homeschoolers, people without standard transcripts. Because some, like Leah, they wanted to see a couple subject tests from her, otherwise they didn't require it, so be prepared for that. And the best time to take a subject test is right after you've completed that subject. If you're taking a chem class, take the SAT chemistry subject test right after you finish it. Seems obvious, but sometimes people don't realize that, you know, if the school's going to require it, do it right away. Don't wait. Because as we all know, a month later, let's see, what's a covalent bond? So that's my advice on SAT.
How much time does a kid need to study?
Well, again, you need to have sort of the basic math, algebra, geometry, a little bit of trig stuff, a little bit of stat. you need to have that. So if you've never done any algebra, you know, it could take you a little while. If you're conversant with it, like you didn't really have to do much at all for SAT math, but for the language part, you know, you had to really worry about punctuation and reading and, you know, nuances and stuff like that. One slight little extra thing. SAT has a lot more reading on it than the ACT. ACT is very cut and dry. You know, the math questions are this long, one paragraph. SAT math questions can be like this much reading and then 3 questions about what you just read. So that's another little kind of thing as far as deciding between. Because a lot of places now, they'll take both. They don't really care which. When I was, in the olden days, it was just SAT. SAT, you know, you can be pretty sure that, you know, people will accept it, but there's also the other option. But, you know, talk to me about that. I've got tons to say about it. As far as prep, you know, again, there's the content prep. As far as the practicing, getting sort of the test smarts, a couple practice tests is really, in the new SAT book I just heard, the old one has 4 practice tests, now the new one has 8, so do several practice tests. I mean, just do it. It's like anything else. It's like sports or music. You know, the more you do it, the more you get used to the kinds of questions. Same kinds of questions recur. You know, there's like your old friends. Oh yeah, I've done this question, I've done this question. So, doing practice tests is really the way to, with somebody to help you with the tips on how to approach them, I would say. But you know, I don't know, a month or 2, if you've got the content down, you know,
I mean,
not that long.
we're talking about before. In my experience, I went to public school through the 6th grade, and then I went to SVS, so I didn't take a class until, well, for my entire high school time. And then I wanted to take the SAT, so I got a tutor, and I remember the SAT was different then, but I took a practice test cold, and I didn't do that badly, you know, and so I felt like I was able to learn the math I needed over, I think I learned it in kind of a season to do fairly well. It really helped that I had math through the 6th grade, I think. I remember that the algebra, you know, it kind of made sense to me. And so I think that gave me a real leg up, but it didn't seem impossible to me. It seems like somebody could learn everything they needed to learn to take the test in like a year.
Yeah. Oh, way less than that.
So how long? If you were a kid and you haven't had a class and you're 15 or 16,
You never done any math?
never done any math,
Yeah.
like, you're a bright kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never done any math?
Sure. And like, what kind of study would that involve?
Well, you have to be pretty serious. I mean, you really have to go through Algebra 1, geometry, you know. So I mean, you'd have to really get somebody to help you do it in a focused way.
Yeah. Because when I did it, I didn't go through the whole sweeping subject of math. I just learned math specifically for the test.
Yeah.
You know, but the SAT was very different than.
Well,
It's
yeah.
changed a lot.
Yeah, and I've never really had the occasion to work with somebody like that. I mean, most of my kids are all public high school, private high school kids who have done, you know, they've done algebra and geometry and things. So some of them have forgotten a lot of it.
Yeah.
In fact, some of them, like if they did algebra in 8th grade, say, let's see, what's FOIL? Let's see, you know, they forget stuff, and that's also interesting. Because it's been a while.
Yeah. So a year. I mean, just we're really.
I think if you've done nothing, yeah. Now the reading and writing part would be harder, I think, because that, you know, you really have to have some familiarity with, you know, how sentences are put together and stuff like that. But even that, I think you could do a crash course. I hope I get the opportunity to find out.
Yeah.
No, seriously, it would be very interesting to see what that's like.
And you talked a little bit about the kind of things that kids can do to prepare for the SAT without actually studying for it. Because you know, with kids to actually make them study for something is hard. But reading books.
You got to practice the test to do what you do.
At some point, whoever hit.
You've got to practice the test to be good at the test.
Right, but so if you say to kids that are like 13 or something like that, hey, you know, there's no reason to take an English class, but read books.
Read books, read stuff you like to read. Yeah, I think so. And then start writing. You know, start writing essays, start recording, doing a journal or something. And optimally it would be writing something that you're showing to somebody who understands how sentences are put together and can help you start thinking about how you express yourself. and how to express it in a cogent way that, you know, is intelligible to somebody else.
Languages
So-
probably help too.
Maybe, yeah, well, there's no test, I mean, you could take, if you're gonna take a foreign language test,
Right.
like, you know, Leah took a Spanish test, did really well.
It teaches you about the structure of language.
Yep, Latin, would you recommend Latin?
Maybe Latin would be good, or any kind of
James teaches Latin.
Do you want to say anything about the GED and the stats? Is that what they're called?
The high set, yeah, it's a horrible, it's a mean little test. And if you can avoid trying to get a high school diploma, I strongly urge it. I mean, I've got a copy of it here, and it's supposedly like, they reckon maybe half of Massachusetts high schoolers would pass this. I mean, it's history, it's, you know, it's all kinds of stuff. And it's like 4 hour-and-a-half tests, and you take it on a computer. Just avoid it at all costs, I would say. Avoid anybody who tells you you need a high school diploma or equivalent. I would try to find a way around it. That would be my advice.
Just to give one thing about that, Garth told me today that Martin took that test, and it wasn't as bad as you was saying.
Well, I'm glad for Martin, but because it looks pretty,
Yeah.
it looks like a monster. Way more work than the SAT would be.
What's it called?
High set, HISET.
And it's a GED?
Yeah, it's ETS. It's what replaced what used to be the GED.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's for people that are over 18 that want to get a high school diploma.
I don't know if there's an age thing. I've never actually tutored this, so I don't really know that much about it, other than I've got some sample questions here. So I'm not really an expert on it.
I thought it was interesting that you were asked for the school wanted to know that your daughter had successfully completed, you know, her high school chunk of work.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were the one who basically said, her mom, who homeschooled her, and verifying that she did it. And then they asked for grades, and you graded them, and they accepted.
Should I
that.
give them some grades? Yeah. They're good grades. So anyone can take classes at a community college. So anyone can go to Mass Ag and take a class. But in order for Tori to graduate with her associate's degree, she had to graduate from high school and be enrolled in one of their programs, liberal arts programs. So she said, well, whenever she finishes her homeschooling, you know, we'll get a letter and then she can be a college student. And I was like, no, you know, kind of like, what do you need sort of thing? Because I'll write you something here, because I'm really the person that's homeschooling her. And it turns out our superintendent, for whatever reason, decided that she was done homeschooling. She's never met him before, but he sent a letter to our house saying she was all done. So I filed that away and kept it, and I just said, would this work? Because they sent us this a couple of years ago. Here you go. And I don't know what he based it on. So I was going to write it, but they said an old letter that he had sent worked. So I used that.
I just have a suspicion some of these things are bureaucratic check mark. It's like,
Yeah.
they don't, it's not like there's an actual person who actually cares. It's
Right.
like, I have this requirement, what am I supposed to do? Oh, this letter, great, okay, check.
Yeah.
So,
And then with the transcripts, did you do paragraph-based transcript or description?
the transcript that we did, so first, I sat down with Calvin and asked him for all the classes he had done here. And I was shocked to find out all the classes he had done here, because I had never heard of anything about most of them. As far as I knew, the only thing he did here was stuff. Anyway, it turned out, it was like four or five classes every semester, when you include the guitar and the rock climbing, things like that. But also a lot of stuff, academic kind of stuff. That was probably a page. I looked online and found a bunch of like homeschool transcript forms, and I picked and choose pieces of them. And so there was probably about one page that was just the list of subjects he had done with no grades. And then I wrote probably about half a page of you know, saying he did this stuff at this homeschool resource center, but then there was also other stuff done at home that which was integrated in, you know, for example, I gave the example of how when we would travel, and then we'd visit cultural sites there, and we would use the opportunity to talk about history and geography, and sometimes we'd study the language before we went to Mexico or whatever, and so it was about half a page of narrative that went with it.
So do you not have to report that stuff to the town that you live in?
Well, up through age 16, up through the time he was age 16,
Okay.
we had to file the form, and there was a generic homeschool form that we had downloaded from Macomber that was like, we'll see, you know, self-directed learning, so we don't know exactly what he's going to do this year, but we'll use libraries and books and these resources. And we're just this long list of boilerplate, really. So that would be our before. And then at the end of the year, I'd write a page, 2 pages of like anything I could think of that he had done that year.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, our thinking was, as far as the town goes, supposedly he has to cover everything that they do in high school, but not at the same rate. And so anything he doesn't do now, well, we'll do that later when he's 16 or 17 when I'm not filling out this form. So, and then, oops, it turned out he didn't do some of that. Well, but we're not filling out the form anymore. So, yeah, we stopped filing at 16. I didn't know this thing that you mentioned, which, you know, we found out that maybe keeping the town informed along the way can be helpful. It turned out, I mean, in our case, out of the 16 schools he applied to, only one asked for this, and the letters from the town saying, well, and it wasn't even a letter from the town to them, it was more like a letter responding to my email saying, well, we can say that you filled the requirements up through age 16, but we haven't heard from you since then. And I forwarded that letter to the school, and they said, okay, good enough. Exactly.
Do you want to do questions?
Yeah,
Just
one more, if you don't mind. If one wants to, just briefly, if you could just go over the timeline. If one wants to attend school in September of any given year, what are those benchmark timelines? Like, you know, when are applications due by, and if you're going to do the SATs, when should you do them?
So, I applied for fall 2017, and most of the applications were due January 1st. Some of them were February 1st.
Okay.
And yeah, most of that you have to do. Some stuff you can send in later, like SAT scores. I think they expect by like maybe a month after the regular main part of the application is due. And what else is there?
So you took the SATs in the fall, right? Last fall?
Some of them
December?
are, yeah,
Like October, December?
preferably you do them earlier than I did. I did it in like December and January and February.
Like October and December would be good, I think, or even spring of the year before.
Yeah, I mean like September, October would be a good time to do that.
So any more questions? And just to kind of reiterate what we talked about a little bit, there's, from the experience of people involved here, there are these 2 pathways. One is to take some classes, take your SATs, and apply for a 4-year college program. That's kind of, you know, basically you link homeschooling up with the standard pattern of attending college. And then there's this other way of using the state systems and taking classes and getting a degree or transferring in or some combination of the both. For either way, you don't have to have a high school diploma. And I think that's, a lot of kids for some reason think they need that, and they really don't. They don't need a GED either. I will say that for kids who don't want to go to college, maybe having a high school diploma or a GED or something like that is a really important thing to have. You know, some jobs want that. I don't know how vocational schools work, but I know that can be a requirement. So you don't have to do a high school diploma, you don't even have to do SATs if you don't want. And I think it's reasonable, you could kind of start being serious late in your teenage life as well. So to some extent, 15 years old might be a good time if you really want to go to college at 18 or so. That would be a good time to start thinking about it.
I just want to say I'm so astonished when I see someone like Calvin thinking about college, and it's not just Calvin. A lot of, Russell is already doing. I mean, when I was 18, I had no idea about what I wanted to do, no ambition of going to college. And then suddenly when I was 20, it seemed like automatic, the obvious thing I had to do. And between the time of when I was 20 and 21, that's where I kind of scrambled to get into college. I went to a good college, but I just can't imagine worrying about this stuff when I was a teenager. And so as parents, don't worry if your teenager doesn't show any inclination of thinking about any of this stuff.
Yeah, it's a good point. This was a talk about how to get into college. It wasn't about all the amazing things that you can do in life without going to college or going to college late. Most people I know, they went to college for something that they don't do anything like that now, or they come back to school, or some of them look back at college as a complete waste of time. I mean, there's a lot to be said on that.
And one other just tangent. I was told I had an academic evaluation when I was like 12. Because my parents separated, don't worry, I'm not going to go completely on it. My parents separated, my dad freaked out that I wasn't being prepared academically the way I needed to. So he brought it into court as part of the deal that I had to have some kind of academic evaluation. And they discovered that I was illiterate at 12 years old. And the specialist said, unfortunately, what we know about how the brain develops, if he's not reading now, he's never going to be able to really be functionally literate. And I think people still say that in some very dark corners of the world. And even then, it freaked me out, but not enough to do anything about it. And so I didn't really start reading until that time, when I was 19, 20, where I decided I needed to go to college. So I really want to temper the whole thing a little bit, just relax. Breathe.
I mean, along those lines, you probably got a sense of this from Calvin's presentation, but other than taking the SATs and the application process and the applications itself, as far as I could tell, he did absolutely nothing just to get into college. So a lot of high school students is like, my life is now about getting into college, and this was, if he didn't want to do it, and he didn't, or he wasn't interested in it for other reasons or whatever, then he didn't do it.
All right, well, thank you all for coming. Thank you.